Gary Keller, the founder of the largest real estate brokerage on the planet, KW, Keller Williams, just mentioned that real estate is in a recession. So let me know in the comment section right off the bat, do you agree? Let me know in the comments if yes, we are in a recession from a real estate perspective, or no, we're not, and share a little bit of why. It's easy to say no, but it's also easy to agree. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to react to and look at some of the comments that were shared during the KW family reunion. So the family reunion is essentially their national convention, there being the KW agents. So Gary Keller says right now real estate is in a recession. Keller Williams co-founder Gary Keller says the Fed Reserve's inflation policy will continue to haunt the real estate industry in 2024, but there's plenty of opportunity for agents to succeed. And what I like about this particular breakdown, and this is written by Marion McPherson, so check out inman.com. I like the way that she writes. I think that she's fair and balanced. I think that she provides a different viewpoint and tries to present something that is tactical, some things that you can actually implement in your business. So that's why anytime she writes something like this, we're all about it and are sharing it in our channel. So you're going to see exactly why here in the first article. It just in the first paragraph, it summarizes the industry so well. The real estate industry took a beating in 2023. Rising mortgage rates froze home sales, consumer sentiment slid to new lows, and several landmark lawsuits threatened buyer broker commissions, and the National Association of Realtors couldn't keep itself out of trouble. So in two sentences, actually that's one complete sentence. What a good writer. In one sentence, she summed up the real estate industry. Phenomenal writing. Phenomenal writing. But yeah, so essentially all of the points bring forth the headwinds that we as real estate agents are facing. So that's how we're setting up the premise. But let's get into what Mr. Keller says, because anytime a billionaire is speaking, he's gotten a lot more right than wrong, in my opinion. So it's absolutely worth a listen. So here we go. We're in a winter right now, and it's going to stay winter for a while, Keller said during his keynote at the KW Family Reunion Conference on Tuesday. If you were hoping this year would give relief, that's not going to happen. The market isn't going to give you anything for a little while. I think this is not a sad reality. I think this is a wake-up call for a lot of the individuals, a lot of agents that just got into the industry fairly recently, whether that's 5 years ago or even up to 10 years ago. The market that we've been including myself, the market that we've been operating in has been, for all intents and purposes, has been good up until 2022 when we hit the higher interest rates. That was the first major, I'll say it that way, the first major headwind that we as professionals had kind of seen, right? So for us, it was just something that was new, especially again, if you just started in real estate. So we hadn't really seen too much adversity, but now that as we continue to be in this adversity and different dominoes in the economy continue to just be shaky, we're starting to wonder, well, can we keep this up? Can we keep either our production up, or can we keep our production afloat while we get over to the other side? So when does the other side happen? So when do the headwinds actually turn around and become the wind behind ourselves? We don't know yet, but this is again why it's so important to have conversations like this. This is why I really enjoy going to conferences altogether and getting a perspective from individuals that clearly know more than I do. I'll go ahead and say that, but also it gives a different perspective on what's happening in different markets, along with what's being spoken about, what's being talked about in presentations like this. My heater kicked on. Let me turn that off. All right. Blame it on the Fed. I think that's a really important point. Keller said the Fed's inflation policy will continue to stifle the housing market, all in the quest of avoiding a wider economic fallout. Every recession over the past 59 years has been caused by the government or the banking sector, he said, and the housing industry has often had to bear the cost of bad decision making. Shots fired. And he's right. The Fed wants us to the Fed wants us to come right up on the border of an economic recession. But right now, real estate is in a recession, he said. So you are in a recession, but the economy's not in a recession. As long as they keep us in a recession, as long as they can keep us in a recession and keep the economy out of a recession, they're going to keep rates high. So the whole whether we're in a recession or not a recession, that's up for the debate, like in terms of, I guess, both in terms of the economy and also from the real estate perspective. But oftentimes we have competing interests here when it comes to the interest rate, right? So as they're trying to halt inflation, that's a mechanism that's used by the Fed. Um, the interest rate, I'm sorry, the interest rate is the rate, not necessarily the mortgage rate, but the rates are used as a mechanism to curtail, to adjust, to modify, to prevent, to manage, whatever word you want to use, a recession, or I'm sorry, the inflation. That's what I meant to say. So the rates that are being set directly impact the level of inflation. So that's a tool, that's a mechanism that is used by the Fed to curtail some of that inflation. So as you saw, I think it was like 2 years ago, the inflation just went absolutely bonkers. This past year, it was still bonkers, but not as bonkers. And this year, it's, in my opinion, it's still on the higher end, but not as high as it was last year and the year before that. So yeah, the inflation component is still a big deal, although it's less than what it was prior. It's still a big deal in a historical sense. Even if the industry moves from one recession to another, Keller and his crew said there's plenty of opportunity for agents to thrive amid swirling headwinds, despite the precipitous drop in annual single-family home sales from 6.1 million in 2021 to 4.1 million in 2023. 4.1 million sales is right on the 35-year trend line. So think about that. The amount of transactions that were had dropped 2 million. Oops, I still have that. I still have this little, I don't know how to change that. Anyway, so I didn't know I had that little, the thing that I used to draw the lines. So we won't touch the screen anymore. It dropped from 6.1 million transactions to 4.1 million transactions. That's a huge dip. Now, what's interesting to note is right here. The total market transaction volume in 2023 was 2.09 trillion, was the third highest in 25 years, even as sales dropped. So the transactions dropped, but the volume, the real estate volume itself, was among the third highest in the last 25 years. So you could see that the real estate prices absolutely shot up. So even though you have less transactions, even though you have a higher interest rate from a mortgage perspective, you're still paying historically high prices, or your clients are still paying historically high prices. Businesses and careers are really built on tough times, not easy times, Keller said. Right when the market recedes, the market goes flat. If you can hold your ground, this is the important part, during that time period, you're set up for the next 5 to 10 years. So if you can make it in this environment, is essentially what he's saying, you can make it in the next environment when the headwinds start turning on us. So that would be a really, if you can hang in there. It's a conversation that we had on Tuesday with our group call. This is a similar message that I mentioned. 2024 it's going to be a tough year, but as you navigate 2024, you're positioning yourself for a phenomenal 2025. I'm not saying phone it in on 2024. There's a lot of work that you have to do. Again, when you're going against these headwinds, you have to do a little bit more rowing, but being more strategic with the way that you exert energy. Right? So same thing here with your real estate business. If we allow consumers to wait for rates to come down, which may not happen that soon, which is something we thought was going to happen in 2024, a little bit quicker and by a larger amount, I don't think we're doing our job, says Jay Papasan, KW Vice President of Strategic Content. 40% of the homes out there are mortgage free. So check this out. This is something that I didn't necessarily know was all that high. I think 40% is high. So we have all of these homes that have these homes that are locked in low rates. We need to tell them, well, why not? Well, he goes into a strategy that we'll talk about here shortly, but 40% of the homes out there are mortgage free. This I knew that I thought the number was in the 30s, to be upfront with you, but 40% of the homes out there are mortgage free. That's huge. That means that there's a lot of homes that are owned outright. Right? So we have to be able to speak to those individuals. And this is one strategy that was suggested by, his name is Jay, right? Jay, the VP. Yeah, VP of Strategic Content. Keep your home and rent it, he said. Maybe owner finance your free and clear home and use that revenue to finance the difference in the new interest rates. So that's one strategy. If you own your home outright, keep it. That's something I advise all of our clients, or, present as an option. Like, do we have to sell? I do think that real estate is one of the best ways to build wealth. Now, I'm not new in that thought process. That's something that's been shared with me for the longest time. But with our clients, whenever we go to listing appointments, we're not always there just to get that listing agreement signed. We're going to go through an analysis. We're going to present some options. Hey, do we have to sell? Is this something that you have to do? Is it something that you want to do? Did you know that you could keep this home and build obviously wealth? But advising them, like, this what it would look like if you purchase a home and kept this one. Like, can you get a property manager and manage your property? You can manage it yourself. We could do the leases, all that stuff. So giving them options. When we go again to listing appointments, the automatic answer is not always going to be just, hey, let's list this home. We present some options and some financials for the homeowner to consider. So this is a strategy that you can at least share with your clients and let them make that decision. At the end of the day, they're the ones that are making the decision. We are here as advisors, as people to guide them along the way. But again, they're the ones that make the decisions at the end of the day. Now, for the millennials, Keller said the advice should revolve around using the coming years to tackle debt and shore up their savings account in preparation for home ownership and other financial goals such as retirement. Abrams said the average savings rate dropped from 11% in 1990 to 5.7% in 2023. Signals a big shift in the way that Americans think about money. I think there's two components to here. And then they go on to speak about millennials, but I'm going to make it a little bit broader, because it's not just a millennials thing. I think as a whole, yes, the culture now is more of a spend now, save never type of a mentality, where previously the culture was more save now and then delay gratification until you're 60, 50, blah, blah, blah. So I think that, yes, there's a big shift from that perspective, from the culture perspective, and how we view money and how we view experiences, as an example, especially millennials and the younger generation opting in to spend a little bit more for a phenomenal experience than going down the less expensive route. So I think the shift, the culture, the way, the mindset has changed. That is for sure, 100%. But I also think that this big drop, I'd be curious to see what it was like in 2010s. I would be curious to see. But you know what? We can look that up. What was the savings? Well, average savings rate in 2010 in the United. Let's see if we can quickly find that. No, it just gives me some random numbers. Is this right? I hope this is right. Okay, here we go. Because it's going to let us know kind of where we've been. So right here, they gave us the 1990s. So they told us it was 10 or 11. Again, it looks kind of right, but we'll see. So we see that the savings rate, personal savings rate, was 11%, 10%. We were in the 60s, then we hit the 70s. It's still in the 10s, so above the 10 mark. And then in the 80s, we weren't saving as much. In the 90s, we certainly weren't saving as much. So it's not even a historical bottom, but it is on the lower end. So you had a sharp rise in 2020 because we didn't know what was going to happen. And we weren't giving as many opportunities to spend that money altogether. So then we absolutely plummeted. Like, this is the biggest drop that we've seen. So here was gradual, that the culture of not saving as much. And then here, it just absolutely plummeted. And then you saw here from the economic turmoil that we were in 2008, you saw that we started saving. So it seems like when there's pandemics or whenever there's turmoil, we come to our senses and we're not as free with our money at that point. But basically, the point that was being made here, and the point that I was trying to convey was outside of the mentality, outside of just a different culture, we do have to look at the inflation and the necessity of spending more. So it's not that we choose in some cases, in many cases, we choose to save less. Yes, the culture is different now, but with a lot of individuals, it's not that they choose to save less, is that there's not enough at the end of the month to save because egg prices are where they are, milk prices are where they are, the essential staple foods, the cost of actually the consumption, like the inflation with everything altogether, again, goes to a previous point they were talking about, the inflation part. That is a big, big deal to where even if we wanted to, not making enough money in order to save. So I think that it's a two-pronged thing. One is as they call it, the big shift. I think, yes, there is a big different mindset around money, but also with the inflation and the prices going up, there's not enough. Americans don't have enough. Folks don't have enough. Yes, the stock market is absolutely ripping, just absolutely incredible, but a lot of individuals are not in the stock market. So that's why you have a lot of individuals that are, have their money tied up in the stock market and think everything is fantastic, everything is great. But from the individuals that are not in that category, that do not have their 401k, that do not have some money invested in the stock market, we're looking at gas, we're looking at food, we're looking at clothing, we're looking at haircuts, we're looking at essential things that continue to rise. Just look at this is a very, very, very trivial example, but look at those drive-through car washes that not too long ago, they were like a $3 car wash. Then it was a $5 car wash, an $8 car wash, a $12 car wash. And I'm talking about here in Texas. So I'm right here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. There's so many car washes that we pass by on every single day. And I do remember seeing those discount car washes that you had the $3 car wash. And then in a couple of months, you had a $5 car wash. So you could even see the 3, it was just relabeled. Then it was 7. I think right now it's actually at 9. Anyway, although they agree with Keller's advice, Gonzalez, Papasan, and Abrams acknowledged the issue with sticky inflation, the term to describe the slow growth in the price of goods after a period of inflation, and greedflation, in term they coined to describe businesses that continue to raise prices without reason. I'm a capitalist. I make no bones about it. I like making money. Am I greedy? I would say no. But at the end of the day, here's where I have to kind of push back on the greedflation term, which I think is a really good term, by the way. But I don't necessarily, in my mind, I don't understand it. I understand that I have just a very simple mind, and just the way that I process things is very analytical. But I think about it this way. So what they're essentially saying is, yes, we're going to give you inflation. That is actually happening. That's a real thing. Food is more expensive. Gas is more expensive. The cost to do this is more expensive. There's more cost associated to doing business today than it was, let's say, 5 years ago. Okay, so they've conceded that point. At least that's what they said here with these, all this stuff. Now, greedflation, the whole notion that businesses are charging more just because, I personally wouldn't see, I don't see the sense in that. Now, are there businesses out there that are raising prices without reason? Maybe. I don't necessarily know how that would benefit them altogether unless they were just looking after a very short-term gain. But even then, I don't see it. So here's what I'm thinking. Disprove me, please, please, please. This is something that I'm just been wrestling with here recently, especially since I read this. So let's just say we have the same. You can kind of see it, so you can kind of review it there. But so let's just say we have the same amount of businesses, right? So we have the same amount of businesses that are selling food, as an example. So, and I say food because I think it was Albertsons and Kroger's. Their merger just got stopped by the the merger was just odd because it was seemed as anti-consumer or all that fun stuff. So let's just say we sell food, right? So I don't understand why somebody would think or somebody would want from the same perspective for businesses to raise prices just naturally. Well, let me back up. So we have two businesses, right? Or two categories of businesses. The greedy businesses that contribute to greedflation, again, greedflation, and then the normal businesses, let's say, the ones that are doing it right. Well, we just agreed that prices, the goods, the cost of doing business, the inflation, that's a real thing. There are costs associated that are going higher. So that's going to push us both up on the same additional cost to do business. Well, that's going to mean that the individuals, that the consumers, unless they got a significant raise, they're struggling a little bit more. It goes back to our previous point that they're not saving as much, right? So that's what we're talking about there. So consumer, hey, I can't get as much from either of these stores because I don't have as much anymore because of the inflation. It's costing more, all this other stuff. So I can't get as much as I used to in the past. So I'm going to have to ration. So again, we're on the same playing field. So what you're telling me now with greedflation is that there's going to be businesses that are going to even be higher than that. They're going to just raise the prices more for the sake of being greedy. Understanding that the individual is more conscious than ever about prices. Understanding that they're not making ends meet. So why, if I am a business owner and I'm part of this greedflation cohort, if I raise my prices, why would that person come over here when they could go over here? Does that make sense? So in my mind, I don't understand that. I don't get that. I don't believe that to be true. Are there businesses out there that might be, unless they're in a super, unless they're in a monopoly or in a very small amount of competition out there, I just don't see greedflation being a real thing. I think more of that is just villainizing the businesses out there and saying, hey, you should lower the prices. That inflation is not a real thing. You're just raising the prices for the sake of making more money and being greedy. I don't see that. I don't believe that. I personally, just from a pure, just thinking through that, I don't believe that to be the case. I might need to research it a little bit more. I think I'm missing something. But again, let me know in the comment section if that's if that made any sense. Let me know in the comment section if greedflation is a thing. Give you an example more than anything, because I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to have my mind changed. But right now, as I see it, I don't see it. So let me know in the comment section down below. Also, are we in a recession? Let me know. I want to hear from you. I'll see you tomorrow.